So when I was young, growing up in Ireland, my father, who you can see there in the picture, that's me on his shoulders, would take us out, not every weekend, but most weekends, to kind of see the latest cool thing that had arrived in town. Maybe we'd go see a new art exhibition at a gallery, or maybe we'd go to the circus. I tell you, if Cinekid was around back then, we would have been all over that. But one weekend really stuck with me. One weekend really had an impact. And that was a weekend where we bundled into the car and we headed out to a place called the Tallaght Square, which is a shopping centre in Dublin. And we went to see virtual reality. We went to see VR. And this wasn't the modern, slick 90 frames a second VR of now. This was 1980s VR. Gigantic headsets, very low frame rate, utter nausea straight away. But it was amazing. It was utterly captivating. And the experience of stepping completely out of this world and completely into another world, it just completely captivated me. And I was, of course, utterly certain that this was the future of entertainment. And so I fully expected that we would have these devices in our homes within just a few years. And the 90s came along and there was no VR. And the 2000s came along and there was no VR. And it kind of ended up becoming a bit of a joke for a while. This kind of weird thing that people had tried but it didn't really work out. So I kind of resigned myself to that this wasn't going to happen, but at least I'd gotten to try it once, so that was cool. And then this fella, my man, Palmer Lucky, arrived up to the Game Developers Conference with a mobile phone duct taped to a pair of ski goggles and literally set the world ablaze once more with the excitement I had always felt for virtual reality. I got a lot of love for what this guy has done. And to make matters even better, my friend Paul, he bought for me as a wedding gift one of Palmer's original Oculus DK1s. But really before it arrived, I knew exactly what I wanted to make. So throughout my life, I've had problems with anxiety and depression. I'm sure some people here in the audience have as well. And during that time, during the time of Palmer's original Kickstarter campaign, was a particularly difficult time for me. I was in the process of, with my colleagues at Bitsmith Games, launching our first commercial game. That was difficult. And I was teaching my first semester at college as well. It was also difficult. And my father, who had taken me to VR in the first place, had grown unwell. That was really difficult. And I felt that every day I was sucked into this vortex of busyness and stress and pain, and I was spat out the other end, having experienced literally nothing, an empty husk. And it was horrible. And I wanted to put a stop to that. I wanted to create a pause at the end of the day. In 1964, Dr. John Lilly invented something that was known then as the isolation tank, but is currently known as the flotation tank. Does anybody know what a flotation tank is? Awesome. And who's tried a flotation tank? Wonderful. For those of you who don't know, this is a soundproof, pitch-dark chamber where you float in salty water, isolated from the outside world. It's a remarkable piece of technology that will give you access to deep states of meditation within just a few hours of going inside of it. The kind of states of mind that you could only get to after years of practice traditionally. And it's just amazing. It's incredible that this thing exists and you can just kind of step out. You can step out of the day-to-day for a little while and then step back in. So the question that I wanted to answer, the question for me was that can virtual reality do the same thing? Can we have a flotation And what we're working on is deep. Deep is a VR exploration experience where you explore a colorful and mysterious underwater world. There's nooks and crannies to go exploring, there's strange creatures to meet, but really what I'm excited about is it's just a nice place to be. It's a nice place to hang out. And what's special to me about this project, one of the things that separates it from other virtual reality projects, is that it's controlled by deep, diaphragmatic, slow yoga breathing and a belly breathing. Has anyone ever done that before? Has anyone been to a meditation class or a yoga class where they've done that? Cool. Well, for those of you who haven't, we're going to do it now. And that's okay. So the idea here is that instead of breathing quickly and shallowly into your chest, you breathe slowly and deeply into your belly. So if you haven't done so already, maybe put your hand on your belly if you feel like it. And as you breathe in, slowly push the belly out, the hand out. And as you breathe out, you allow the hands to be drawn back. Just do this a few times. This is called diaphragmatic breathing or yoga breathing. And for me, during the periods of anxiety and depression, this has been one of my main coping strategies. This doesn't solve my problems, but it makes them much easier to deal with. I was doing them just before I came up on stage today. And now you have this technology too. So if you find stress, if you're stressed about something, or if you can't sleep, or anything at all, I would invite you to give this a go. And maybe it will work for you, maybe it won't, but it works for me. I started making this project in my spare time, kind of tinkering away at it on weekends. And progress was slow, but it was interesting to work on. But like the previous speakers, it's really, I have a big debt to Cinekid in terms of the genesis of this project. It was shown originally in the Playful Arts Festival, the Riders Festival here in the Netherlands. And Pauline from Cinekid came along and saw the potential in this crude, semi-functional version of the game that was showing there. And Pauline introduced me to my collaborator, Nikki Smith from Manabanda. And Nikki's talent and vision have really allowed us to bring this game to life. Myself and Nikki are also working with Dr. Brian Dublin, who's making all of the amazing AI and behaviors of the creatures within the world. And Andy Mooney, my friend from when I was a teenager, who's making these strange sounds and soundtrack. It's really weird working on something that I never expected to show outside of my house. I was literally making this for myself initially. And this was just something I was going to have at home, something to put on at the end of one of those stressful days that I described, and just step outside for a minute. And now it's traveling all over the world, and it's got this kind of life of its own, and there's a bunch of people working on it. And it's really amazing and surprising, but not nearly as surprising as when stuff like this happens. And like, when I started playing around with game engines 10 years ago, this is not something that I really expected to arrive at. And for a small percentage of people, the piece really connects with them. And I don't know, I never expected to be having these conversations with people for games. But of course, Deep is just part of a wider tapestry and a wider ecosystem of interesting VR experiences. For me, virtual reality is not a peripheral for video games. It's not something to make shooting an alien in the face more exciting, although it does. For me, this is a new platform. This is a new art form. This is a new medium. And we're only kind of figuring out what it is at the moment. I believe, and I'm obviously an enthusiast, I've made that clear, but I believe that virtual reality is going to do the same thing for experiences as the internet did for information. And that is what I am deeply excited about. But what's even more exciting is how easy it is. So I've shared something with people. This is an expression of my own coping strategy for depression and anxiety. But you have something in your life. Maybe it's a memory, maybe it's an idea, maybe it's a feeling, maybe it's a dream. But I want you to share that with me. If you can send an email, or do Google, or use a computer, you're already halfway there to actually the skills you need to make a virtual reality experience. So what would excite me most of all is if you could consider maybe over the next few months or few years, making that experience, making that thing that is just for you, and sharing it with me too. Thank you.